So we're now going to look at a few key phrases and initiatives from Agenda 21. Sustainable development, we've talked about that a little bit, or not talked about it, but mentioned the phrase. Smart cities, smart growth, mega regions, regional development or regional planning, environmental justice, beyond traffic. I haven't covered all of these in this presentation. Ecology, equity, economy. That's on the slide there with these interlocking circles. Smart meter, smart motorway. All this smart stuff. You can see the smart motorways stuff on the basically the smart motorways advise you what speed to drive at. That's about basically it, I think, from what I could work out. I think what they do is, I don't think they're that smart. I think all that they do is they've got cameras and they count the number of cars that are going past the cameras per hour, and then they know when it's congested and they put up advisory speed limits, you know, but I think they're legally binding when they come on. So it'll say 60, so they tell you what speed you should be travelling, basically, which, however they do it, you know, again, it's a bit like the car driving into the sea, isn't it? Yeah, I know there's flipping loads of cars around me. I'm going to have to slow down, really, because I can't move anywhere. So, smart cities. Yeah. So what you've got in your smart cities, yeah, well, I've got the 11-minute video clip here to explain this. But this is from the BBC website, the City of 2050. So what's it going to be like for us in 30 years or so time? Well,
Melissa and Aaron here for True Stream Media.
Hi, everybody.
And everybody talks about Agenda 21 in terms of the future and in abstract terms. We're doing this report today to show you what it's actually looking like, because it's here and it's now.
And they've got test cities that are very high tech, and of course this is all in the name of saving the planet and saving resources. But notice almost everything is based on more electricity to surveil you and keep track of data. And yeah, I get that they want to use green technology to do it, but look how enslaved you're going to be to this system.
Alright, so this was in the BBC. This is the City of 2050, and it's talking about how everything is going to be on a smart network. They're going to have fiber optics, but it won't just be fiber to the home. It's going to be a case of fiber to everything. It says all services, education, and government, utilities, etc. connected to this network, which will become, quote, the nerve center of the city. And everything is going to be on a sensor network. It says experts predict everything from street furniture to roads to homes we live in will be connected to this network. And it even says that some cities may build NASA-style control centers to make predictions about city life, including where crimes may be committed. So now we're talking about pre-crime. It talks about the human network, how rather than mobile phones, we're all going to have wearable computers, possibly something similar to Google Glass.
And basically you look like Data from Star Trek, but stupider.
We're even going to get delivery drones that are going to bring us our pizza, so yay for that.
Of course, they're not advertising the taser drones.
But this is still abstract. This is still what it will look like. Here's what it actually is. This is Masdar City. This is called the World of Tomorrow, or the New Future City. A lot of people are saying this is what future cities will look like. This is being built currently right now at a price tag of $22 billion in Abu Dhabi, and it's a completely walled smart city. And there's two squares here. They're completely walled. Everything's on the grid.
It's literally living inside the box. It looks like living in shipping containers, but actually what it really looks like, and I don't watch a lot of Star Trek, but the references are relevant. Someone pointed out the Borg. It's a hive collective where every entity that lives in it basically has no ability to dissent, and they just have to go along with this large, all-integrated system. It's really creepy looking. It looks like it's physically growing out of the ground into the Borg cube.
Well, and that's what it's going to be like, because everything is going to be on the grid, and all of that data will become one big mass. So this is Masdar City. It's a walled city, and it's supposed to be a completely sustainable, zero carbon, zero waste, car-free city. They even have these little personal rapid transit car things.
I'm sorry, but it looks like a suntanning booth on wheels. It's like a rolling coffin. I thought smart cars were bad.
Yeah, these are creepy. There's one of the options they're looking at. And it's supposed to be that everything has renewable sources, it's all green energy, and it sounds really great. But at the same time, you're all going to be completely on the grid, and we'll get more into how that's going to work. This is being backed by World Wildlife Fund, Greenpeace, and even the U.S. government. This is from 2010. It said that the ambitious Masdar City project has secured its arguably highest profile backer to date, as the U.S. government has signed a deal with Abu Dhabi on this city.
Well, that's the heart of the deception, is that you have to be on the grid, and it's endorsed by all these green for the earth groups. We could have alternative energy and still have our free plots of land and live off the grid. They want to control everyone because it's really, for them, about controlling human population numbers more than it is about the resources of the earth.
Exactly. Here you even have then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton going to the Masdar Institute. She's talking about renewable energy and climate change and sustainable development that takes advantage of human capital. That's pretty creepy. And she goes throughout and has a lot of remarks about how this isn't only in the interest of global progress. I mean, there's a lot about New World Order government basically here through these smart cities and this new renewable technology that everyone's partnering on. And if you think Masdar looks creepy, Sando International Business District creeps me out even more. This is another smart city or ubiquitous city. This one's coming in at a price tag of $40 billion. And this one is talking about how everything is going to be on the grid and people will even be chipped. And even mentions here that the schools in this city will be funded by the Ministry of Knowledge Economy, which, if that doesn't sound like it's straight out of George Orwell's 1984 dystopic future nightmare, I'm not sure what does.
And obviously that applies because Orwell had a system where you watch the propaganda through the television, but the television watches you back, and they're doing that in spades with every device watching you and monitoring you. Orwell couldn't have even foreseen this level of control.
Well, and it's also part of the Incheon Free Economic Zone.
Now, what I find interesting about free economic zones and free trade is that they sound free because of the rhetoric, but they're really trade blocks. And if you're not a partner to the trade block, you can't afford to do business. If you're a regular producer who doesn't produce in the free zone, not only do you pay more for labor and tariffs and stuff, but you don't have the access to the rapid transit and distribution. Not everyone can be Walmart.
Exactly. And so this article on smartdatacollective.com talks a lot about Songdo, and this is the world's first city in a box that's going to be ready by 2015, and it's a consortium of partners including Cisco, 3M, United Technology. Cisco's actually behind the other one, Masdar, as well. And it says that it will be a completely connected city where any device, building, or road will be equipped with wireless sensors or microchips. And it says that smart innovations such as streetlights that automatically adjust the number of people on the street. It doesn't mention IntelliStreets, but surely that's what will be, which are the streetlights that have cameras and recording equipment inside of them. It says all houses in Songdo will be equipped with sensors known as domotica, which will be managed via a large TV in your living room. Next to the homes, there will be telepresence screens at all offices, hospitals, schools, and shopping centers. And it goes on to say everything here is going to be tracked, traced, and chipped. Everything. It says traffic will be measured via RFID tags on cars. They will send geolocation data to central monitoring units. It also says that public transportation will be completely wired. All locations will always be known. It says even when citizens throw away their garbage in the disposal, a chip card will be used, so even garbage will collect data. Then it goes on to say everything, the climate, the energy consumption, leisure activities, water consumption, all monitored by data. Special cameras will keep Songdo secured, while children will wear bracelets with sensors so that kids can be found if they're lost while they're playing. Every single thing within this city is going to be tracked, traced, chipped, monitored, and recorded.
And if they have their ducks in order, if it even works, where's the room for any freedom or any dissent in this society? Do you really want to trust the same governments that couldn't be trusted to collect taxes without going after political dissenters as the IRS did with Tea Party, or the companies that have been repeatedly caught charging more for electricity and other utilities because it's the summer or it's a deregulated climate and they could jack up the rates. This is a total surveillance state, and where they've tested this in the UK, they've got stuff that not only watches you, but scolds you and barks at you if you're found with antisocial behavior, or if you don't throw away garbage, or if you're a suspected pre-criminal.
Yeah, they're already not letting kids climb trees in those communities. You think they're going to be letting anybody do anything out of line here in this new smart grid with pre-crime built in? And so you've got that. You've got these things going into cities as well. This is IBM had built this in Rio de Janeiro. It's an intelligence control operations center, intelligent control collective, whatever this is. And basically you have these people in these white jumpsuits. It looks very much like THX 1138. And they sit in these giant rooms with computer screens everywhere and this huge bank of monitors that's monitoring all aspects of the city in real time. And they just sit and churn out the data. And it says here that the number of things connected to the internet is expected to reach 50 billion by 2020. And that basically it'll be an Internet of Things that goes one step further by not only integrating machines, people, ERP, CRM, and social networking systems, but also analyzing and using all that data. And I think what's going to end up happening is it's probably not even going to be people in creepy jumpsuits in here. It's probably going to just be completely monitored by computer and completely autonomous.
And again, they're not only going to monitor your person, your refrigerator, your toilet, even your toaster, but they're going to fine you if you use too much. They're going to scold you or rebuke you, or they might just cut off your authorization altogether.
And that's pointed out actually in this article, The Quantified City, where they're talking about these new smart cities with smart sensors. And it says that, local governments might give us a tax break for taking shorter showers or leaving the refrigerator door open less often. And while that's true, they could be doing that with one hand. The other hand could also be swatting you with fines if they think you're using, too much water, too much electricity, anything. And this article also makes a really good point about smart cities could lead to dumb citizens. And it talks about how there's a real risk for our lives to become more automated, that we will become more like automatons. It says we will follow the guidance of our smartphones without reflecting on how we live our lives and engage in our communities. And basically, you see that already with people following their GPS, which tells these people, these are Japanese tourists that were in Australia, they were on holiday, they took a turn according to their GPS and drove right into the bay. They were too busy listening to a computer to have any common sense about what they were actually doing.
So smart cities produce idiocracy. Yeah, I get it. And there's no room for free thought. That's the message of the collective hive Borg of Star Trek.
And basically, everything you do will be tracked, traced, chipped, monitored, and watched. Whatever kind of privacy you thought you had, whatever kind of freedom we even think we have now, that is out the window on these new Agenda 21 smart cities. It's amazing.
Don't buy the rhetoric. Just defund this. Say no. We've got to try to stop it. I'm not for this at all.
And I know we've shown you these two examples today, but these are just two examples. These kinds of cities are going up all over the world right now. All right, we'll talk to you guys later. TruthStream Media.
So you get these other things, asset-based community development. I'm not, you get these buzzwords, buzz phrases, large and growth movement that considers local assets as primary building blocks of sustainable community development. So there you go. Sustainable development is one of the key phrases that you'll see over and over again. And that's built into this as well. This is from the US, Northwestern University. Common purpose and smart cities. At Common Purpose, we believe that cities, this is training charity that we talked about briefly earlier on, we believe that cities need to act as magnets. Really? Why would you believe that? Drawing people in, citizens, leaders, and young talent. Really? Who believes? Who is Common Purpose? Who's saying that this is a good thing? Who are you to say this? What is your basis for saying this? I mean, I don't really care what they think. I think if people want to go and live in cities, they should be allowed to do that. But if they don't and they want to live in a rural community, that should be allowed as well. They shouldn't be discriminated against. Strong cities. Launch of Strong Cities Network to strengthen community resilience against violent extremism. Department of Justice, United States. Blah, blah. I'm not going to read all that out. I will read a couple of steps. So if you look at the Strong Cities website, you'll see, if you go onto the About section, it says, Strong Cities Network is the first global network of cities. Why do you need a global network of cities? And other subnational entities working together to build social cohesion, whatever that is, and resilience to prevent violent extremism in all its forms. The SCN has issued public statements of support and solidarity for its member cities Beirut, Paris and Kano in the light of recent horrific attacks, which is referring to this false flag that happened in Paris in November 2015. It was Friday the 13th. And then testimonials on this website. This is the mayor of Arras, and he said that although radicalisation can result from a variety of different causes and be expressed in a variety of different ways, there are a range of trigger factors that are identical all over the world, such as, what are these trigger factors then that are causing this radicalisation and violent extremism? What are they? Surely we've already got laws to address those issues. We shouldn't need to address those issues separately because we've already got laws to stop criminal activity, haven't we? Strong city mayors advance the green agenda. So are they for violent extremism, or are they to do with environmentalism? London, Bristol, New York and Copenhagen all have both. They're strong and successful and green. And while strong leadership might not be the only factor driving the green agenda, it's certainly an important one. So they're highlighting that. And this again is from The Guardian. Low carbon cities report, blah, blah, blah. Reducing carbon emissions, Boris Johnson. London's Boris Johnson. His stupid thing where he's riding a bike. Yeah, great. Well done, Boris. You know, your daft helmet. Smart growth, another buzz phrase. National Coalition pursuing sustainable communities planning and transportation. This is another website you can go to. This is UK based, this one. Trying to, promote sustainable communities. Yeah, blah, blah. Oslo moves to ban cars from city centre within 4 years, October 2015. Proposed ban on private vehicles is part of a plan to slash greenhouse gas emissions 50%, so it's all orientated towards this again. No questioning of the basis for it at all. Agenda 21 is local, national and international. Across the scale, we've looked at some of the local sort of notes there, as it were. It's just as Rosa said. And this is an example from where we are at the moment when recording this, High Wycombe. This is a local group, local volunteers group. This is one of the things that's encouraged, volunteering to help the environment, to help protect the earth. And inquiries at the local environment centre here in High Wycombe found that it is manned by volunteers, some of who were sent there by the job centre, and they would not get benefits if they did not agree to volunteer. So again, we have doublethink. This is mandatory volunteering. And it's an example of communitarianism in action. We were there, folks. It's no longer just partly in the future. And they're all filled with very nice people who think they're doing a good thing, but they don't see the way that it's working, and they don't know it's based on a lie. And I found evidence of this as well in my local Erewash Council, which is where I live. That's my who I pay my council tax to. And they talk about the revised UK Sustainable Development Strategy from 2005, Securing the Future. And that was based on the concept of sustainable development at the Rio Summit in 1992. And this is page 5 of this council document. So it's right in these documents in my local area, just as Rosa essentially said it would be. And I'm sure if you looked in your local area, if you went and looked at your local council website and searched for sustainable development or sustainability, you'd find some reference to this Rio Summit. But this wasn't created by any of your elected government officials. We don't even know who wrote this document. You know, it could have been written by David Rockefeller for all we know. We don't know who wrote it. And then we've got these mega regions as well, of which Britain is part of a mega region called Arc-Montreux. Didn't you know that? And this is designed, this mega region is to promote the effective governance of the Channel ecosystem, the English Channel ecosystem. And it seems to be promoted by this Interreg group, which is doesn't really seem, it seems one of these strange groups which doesn't really seem to do anything else, nothing obvious else that it does, anything different. But there doesn't seem to be much about other mega regions in the EU. I've got a map for the US next, but there's not much in the EU. But this Interreg organisation, if you look at its websites, you can see the headings here: low carbon economy, research and innovation, SME competitiveness, environment and resource efficiency. And then you've got the EU logo there. So you can see it all kind of ties together. Maybe not quite so obviously Agenda 21 or UN, but it's those sort of themes are being repeated here at this level too. But looking across to the US, the mega regions are more obvious. We've got Arizona mega region, Sun Corridor, Cascadia, which straddles the US and Canada, Florida, Front Range, Great Lakes, Gulf Coast, Northeast, Northern California, Piedmont, Atlantic, Southern California, which goes into Mexico, and the Texas Triangle. So I'm not sure what that, I've got that international at the bottom there, but maybe that's Texas Triangle International. So these mega regions, they're breaking up the US into these regions for America 2050. Why? What's this all about? And if you look at the funding for America 2050, it's sponsored by, it's sponsored by the Rockefeller Foundation, those lovely people doing good for the world. Again, and you can see this America 2050 logo on this northeastern landscapes water map, which comes from the America 2050 website, america2050.org, that's where that comes from. So what's going on? So, how sustainable is this, do you think, coming next? This is a Google map that I downloaded when I ended up talking about this with somebody fairly recently. What's going on here then? Aquaventura Beach, the Palm Jumeirah on the left here, this strange structure. This is just off the coast of Dubai. But look how big it is. It's 3 miles across. That's the one that I've marked with the black line there. 3.13 miles. Wow. And what about that other one? Well, that other one is 4.25 miles across. What the hell is that? Is that sustainable? Looks to me like sustainability doesn't apply in Dubai. Why would that be? Why are we just subjected to it in this wealthy country, a wealthy city, in a wealthy country? They don't seem to be subjected to Agenda 21. If the sea level's rising, then this isn't sustainable, is it? 'Cause it's going to be underwater. It's not hundreds of meters above water. So that's bad planning, isn't it? That's not sustainable. And look at this tiny little thing, you know. Look how sustainable that is. This is the Dubai Atlantic Hotel, I think. I did have the... Yeah, it is. It's the Atlantis Hotel. You can just see it here at the bottom. I mean, how many rooms has this got? It's on the end. You can see this little guy. This is on the end of that sort of palm tree thing affair. It's huge. I don't know of a bigger hotel. So why doesn't sustainability in Dubai apply? Or apply in Dubai? You've got this stylised world map built out of man-made islands. Stylised out of man-made islands. It's 5 miles across. What sort of engineering has gone into that? And structural engineering and so forth. How much material have they had to move around to make that? Is that sustainable? I wonder if it's got something to do with this. If you look in Dubai, you will find, and somebody else sent me this, I didn't find this, somebody else found this, the Jain School of Global Management. Whatever could that be? Whatever could that be? Jain School of Global Management. And this is within the university at Dubai. There's a big sort of university complex there. How strange is that? And curiously, I was talking with you, wasn't I, about these. I've had two, I don't know if you might have told you, but I've had two Skype contacts trying to contact me in the last week. So I just got these random Skype contact requests, and both of them are from bankers in Dubai, and they're real people. One's a head of Barclays Bank in Dubai, and the other's some other banking boss. So, I mean, again, going on, how is it? How are people believing this? How are they being trained to say that it's not, to sort of accept that it's normal? It's done, at least in part, through predictive programming, movies, books, films, and so forth. Hunger Games, Divergent, Insurgent. We've had Brave New World much earlier. That was written, I think, what was it, 1932? I think you told me, wasn't it? Brave New World. We've had things in the past like Escape from New York. There was the Mad Max series. A lot of films which talk of this, everyone being herded into cities because the rest of the environment becomes wild or unlivable, uninhabitable, etc., etc. So that goes into the subconscious mind, I think. And then, of course, more overt, we've got these strange Georgia Guidestones, which seem to support this idea of a depopulation agenda, where it overtly states on these Georgia Guidestones that maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, is what is said there. They were erected in 1980, these Georgia Guidestones. Unite humanity with a living new language, whatever that means. Balance personal rights with social duties. Communitarianism. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. So what about these empty cities? Certain people have talked about there being empty cities and camps. There's going to be this huge cataclysm and they're going to put everyone in these FEMA camps. Stories of these FEMA camps have been around for years. I've seen these for years. I recently found that there's been an act of Congress to build 6 of these emergency camps, which are meant to be used at times of natural disaster if people get displaced from their city, presumably from an earthquake or a tornado or something like that. But in China, we've got these whole empty cities which are virtually empty, and there's been BBC documentaries on these now. You could argue that these have been set up ready to herd the people into. And herd them all into these cities. I don't know if that's what they're for, but one could argue that certainly. So, looking for Agenda 21 information in the UK, if I search on the UK government website, currently as of December or January 2016, if you do a search for sustainability, you'll get about 11,000 results. If you just search for Agenda 21, you'll get one result, which is a scoping study for collaborative research and development between the Environment Agency and the l'Agence de l'eau Seine-Normandie, which is, I think, the water board of Normandy in France. And looking at the United Nations, we're looking into sort of education now and how they've sort of tried to put these themes into education. And there are many examples. These are only probably, I think, a couple that we've got time to cover here. If you look at the UNESCO Associated Schools Programme, ASPNet, this is a site that's based in the UK. The UNESCO Associated Schools Programme is a global network of schools which educate for sustainable development, allowing every human being to acquire the knowledge, skills, attitudes and values even necessary to shape a sustainable future. And the heading there, which I didn't read out, is Learning to Live Together as Global Citizens. What does that mean? So there's various bits of information on there. They promote all of this stuff, this global warming and carbon footprinting stuff. You can also look at aspects of Common Core in the USA and aspects of the national curriculum in the UK, where you'll see these themes are, put into various parts of the educational system as well. And there's some strange things that have been going on in Common Core, such as trying to define maths as a soft science, for example. And you can look at, it was Stacey Lynn, wasn't it? Stacey Lynn, who's looked into a lot of that more recently. And then another example now, this was brought to my attention by Mena a few months ago, Agenda 21 for Kids. And you can see there the title of this children's book, Rescue Mission Planet Earth, a children's edition of Agenda 21. Produced in 1994, sponsored by United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, the big vaccinators, United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, and the United Nations Educational and Scientific and Cultural Organisation, UNESCO, Foundation for Environmental Awareness, Hilversum, in the Netherlands. Now, if you go to this, you can download this as a PDF if you do a bit of searching. It's not difficult to find. Page 44 of Rescue Mission Planet Earth, Agenda 21 for Kids. It says, many parents don't have time for their children, so they try to compensate by giving them anything money can buy. Yet a mountain of teddy bears is no consolation for a lonely child. Adults are really just big children. In their weak moments, they buy teddy bears for themselves as well, to wipe away their tears. Cars, for example, a stereo, or a new house. More things! Are they too weak to care that their new toys are harming the environment? While they play, they are destroying our future. Wow. So just think about that. Think about the message that is sending out. What it is actually saying there, and what's it making children think when they read that. All very strange and rather disturbing, if you ask me. But when you're talking about education, obviously there's no better way of getting things into people's heads en masse, perhaps, than television. But you do have to be careful of the effect of television. And what I'd like you to listen for carefully in this is what Michael Palin actually says. If you listen to what he says, even though that's not what the focus of this, that's the little thing which I was telling you about, which I only noticed the other day.
In London, the Prime Minister met officials from the Department of the Environment to discuss the whole question of national parks prior to next week's national parks that are being ready. A cassette tape recorder is to replace the salon quartets and trios which have played beside the potted palms at Manchester Town Hall reception for nearly 100 years. Shortage of money has caused a switch to taped music, which will be relayed over a new public address system, replacing one which relayed both music and the clink of glasses to other reception rooms. Stock market prices hit record levels in the last day of the year. The Financial Times index rose 3.7 points to 476.5, highest demand. Police pounced on transmitting equipment rolling down Isle of Wight yesterday, after the BBC had reported that Radio Free Solent, a parent station, was marking the first birthday of the BBC's Southampton-based Radio Solent.
Turn that television off! You know it's bad for your eyes! That's better. Henry, will you stop sitting around? Yes, dear. There's an entire TV studio waiting around for you to do the next link.
So there you are. Television is bad for your eyes, but perhaps really we should have had a thing coming out with his brain being, scrubbed or something, or washed. Now, what happens, as we've been talking about, is this Hegelian dialectic. So you create the problems and you offer the solution to those problems. With propaganda and education, people will really believe that climate change and consumerism are problems, when that's not the root of the problem. Not really. So in this example of a Hegelian dialectic, the agenda is to have a centralisation of power. So the thesis part is the manufactured terrorist threat. The antithesis is the repressive police state, and the synthesis is removal of freedoms, transfer of power from the many to the few, giving up your rights for protection, for security. I won't read all of this slide out, but basically the Hegelian dialectic is where the state has the supreme right against the individual, whose supreme duty is to be a member of the state, for the right of the world spirit is above all special privileges. That's William Shirer quoting George Hegel in The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. And the Hegelian dialectic within that context is the framework for guiding our thoughts and actions into conflicts that lead us to a predetermined solution. If we do not understand how the Hegelian dialectic shapes our perceptions of the world, then we do not know how we are helping to implement the vision. When we remain locked into dialectical thinking, we cannot see out of the box. So what you've got to do is you've got to step outside the dialectic, and this releases us from the limitations of controlled and guided thought. So you don't go into this, yes, global warming is caused by man, no it isn't, it's caused by the solar activity, no it's not caused by solar activity, it's caused by industrial activity, no it's caused by methane. You get out of all that and you realise that there is something else going on, and it's none of those things which is the real problem. And David Icke has condensed this dialectic. He's one of the people, I think, that came up with this problem, reaction, solution. And I've heard it quoted in marketing speak that you do this hurt and rescue. When you're trying to sell somebody, you explain to them they have a problem, and you say you can sell them the solution, and that's how you sell it to them. So you hurt them by explaining they've got a problem, or even a potential problem, which you're going to fix for them, and that's why they should buy this widget off you or this service from you. So what about, could we possibly have been having a Hegelian sort of situation where these problems are created? The extreme weather that we've had in the UK since at least 2007, I've got a few examples here. We had significant flooding in the UK, for example, in 2007 in Hull, 2009 Cockermouth and elsewhere in Cumbria, 2012 Exeter area and Malmesbury, 2014 Dawlish and the Somerset levels, and in 2015 they've just started naming storm systems here for the first time. We've had Desmond, Ava, Frank, and I think we've had another one. I forget what the latest one is. Graham, wasn't it, or something? Abigail was it? Yeah. But who would consider that these events are actually engineered? Who would consider that this is part of this situation where what they're basically doing is flooding areas to change the use of the land potentially, or displace those people? And somebody had cottoned on to this, that if you did a correlation between the areas where they wanted to do fracking and some of the areas that have been affected by floods, there is, well, I couldn't find the correlation personally. In fact, the only one that I found in the Somerset Levels area from a couple of years ago was, I forget the name of this particular one, the area, I can't remember the exact area, but it's somewhere near Bath. Petroleum and exploration and development licences are assigned in rounds. Some had argued that the flooded land would be sold off to fracking companies, but as when I was looking into this, the licences appear to have been blocked following action by local campaigners. So it looks like, to me at least, they haven't been successful in getting those licences granted. But then what is very interesting, I've got a video clip about this just a couple of minutes long, is this EU Natura Policy number 6, which actually allows floods, or it recommends that areas are encouraged to flood. These have included, from Christopher Booker in the Daily Telegraph, these have included the EU's Natura 2000 strategy, along with a sheaf of directives on habitats, birds, water, and not least the Floods Directive of 2007, which specifically requires certain floodplains to be allowed to flood. In 2008, when the EA was run by Baroness Young, this was reflected in a policy document which classified areas at risk of flooding under 6 categories, ranging from those in Policy Option 1, where flood defences were a priority, down to Policy 6, where to promote biodiversity, the strategy would be to increase flooding. And this was a case where the Somerset Levels were covered by Policy 6. They wanted to increase flooding there. And then if you look at this Natura 2000 website, it says Natura 2000 is not a system of strict nature reserves from which all human activities would be excluded. While it includes strictly protected nature reserves, most of the land remains privately owned. The approach to conservation and sustainable use of the Natura 2000 areas is much wider, largely centred on people working with nature rather than against it. However, Member states must ensure that the sites are managed in a sustainable manner, both ecologically and economically. So where does this directive come from? They must ensure, member states must ensure, really, must they?
There are a lot of things that need to be fixed. We need the insurance companies to get round so the loss adjusters can help householders. We need the council to get round with skips so people can get their carpets and their furniture removed. We need to get the power back on. And then we need to learn the lessons. We are seeing these events take place more often. Now the government is spending more on flood defences over the next 4 years than over the last 4 years. There's a lot of flood defences being built. Something like 80,000 houses were protected this time. But we've got to do more. And so we've got to do agencies. What we do is learn lessons from
The situation here in Somerset gets worse day by day. We're here to find out if these EU directives from 2004 and 2007, in collaboration with the Environmental Agency and DEFRA, are true. Is it true that these wetlands are being flooded intentionally and managed? We're here to find out the truth.
That was a trailer for a proposed documentary about the flooding of the Somerset levels, but I don't think that documentary ever got made. I think the guy that was doing it probably moved on to other things. But they did seem to think that there was something going on where they were... What they actually did was they actually stopped dredging the rivers over several years, probably in the early to mid-2000s. Normally the rivers would be dredged. This is a process whereby they take out gunk from the river so that the water actually has a quicker course through it and it's less likely to flood areas. But that process had stopped. An EU directive had stopped the dredging, so then the floods became more likely. And they've done that in a few areas apparently. And so these residents, I found this website where they basically actually, as I understand from reading the website, they got the dredging started themselves. They got the funds together, they set up a group, and then they got the equipment to actually dredge the rivers in the places that needed the dredging the most. So, going back to this fracking thing which we mentioned in relation to the flood areas where there seems to be some overlap, possibly, I wasn't wholly convinced by this, between the areas proposed for fracking and the areas that were flooded. But just fracking in general, if we look at what's been going on with fracking in the UK in the last 3 or 4 years, and they're talking about doing this, and then we get these sites where they have experimental wells drilled, like in Lancashire, and you get people protesting against these wells, and then you get the police protecting the interests of the large corporations, not of the people who live in those communities or near those communities. They're being forcibly removed from these sites. Then is this sustainable? Is this environmentally friendly? I don't think it is. So there's clearly this Agenda 21 is not what it claims to be, because if it was, these large companies would have been blocked from their activities before they'd even got to the point of going on site with this equipment, surely. I mean, to my way of thinking. unless there's something obvious that I'm missing. So is it really the case then that large corporations are exempt from sustainability rulings and guidelines, yet individuals acting on a much smaller scale are not exempt and are forced to live by these sort of stupid rulings and so forth? That's just a question. I don't know the answer, but it sure seems that way, that fracking is allowable and it's not sustainable. So in view of that, what I wanted to illustrate in the last part of the talk is that Agenda 21 is not what it's claimed to be. It cannot be, because if it was, then this sort of thing that I'm going to show now wouldn't be going on.